Good evening and welcome to Nice Drop of Port. We are back live for our 27th episode, which is very exciting. Actually, it might be our 28th. I lose track. I was just telling Matthew before that we have never done a real sound check before going live on the show. And tonight we've actually done one. And we've been told that our audio is perfect. But, wow. Matthew, talk to me.
I'm just really hoping that we're there now. It is incredible that you've just said it's taken us 27 episodes to get where we really wanted to be. But hey, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day? We'll get there.
Rome wasn't built in a day. The other one I like is if you build it, they will come. If you build it, they will come, which is very much what Auckland FC have done this season. Like I'm still kind of a little bit in the glow of the Premier win, and in that kind of. You and I have never been here before because we kind of like, you know, supported English teams where you either win the league or you lose the league or you're out of it or you're in it. But now we've won the league, but now we've got to go again in these finals coming up. It's kind of weird one, eh?
It's tricky. I'm sure that I remember there's always been small talk about trying to maybe look at the only closest thing I can think of is the playoffs, you know, with Birmingham always being in and around that, trying to get into the promised land of the Premiership. The playoffs is probably the closest thing that I can think that I've ever had to go through. You know, the season finishes and you might have to go through the lottery of trying to beat, you know, win home, win away, and then try and win a final at Wembley to get yourself to wherever you need to go. But I'm sure I remember hearing talk where they were thinking of trying to, it's all a money thing, isn't it? I'm sure I've heard maybe the Premiership trying to come up with an idea where this team can play that team and that team can play this team. But I just think it's always been chucked out the window because, you know, we're traditionalists, aren't we, I suppose?
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of excited. I'm really excited about the playoff system. And the tickets, though, I've got tickets for the semi-final. Have you got your tickets for the semi-final, Matthew?
Have you got my ticket for the semi-final?
I've got your ticket for the semi-final, Matthew.
I've got a ticket for the semi-final.
You got a ticket for the semi-final.
Ticket.
That's good. That's good.
Looking forward to it. Can't wait.
It's quite a crazy situation because basically, if you remember, like I was, you get a week. I think it was about a week before the tickets go on general sale. So the general sale tickets start around about Tuesday next week. So which is really good for people like me because I take a while to get to it. So I keep saying tomorrow I get the tickets, and last night I bought the tickets. So I'm well made up. We're going.
Must admit, when I saw that, I did start to panic a little bit because I thought I really wanted to go to this game, and I thought, geez, that is quite a decent period of time for people to get, like you've just said, to get their act together and buy themselves the ticket or the tickets that they need. So it was pretty cool to see a message come through from you and say, hey, I can get a ticket. Do you want a ticket? I was like, oh, thank goodness. So I thought, I reckon it's going to be real tight when they go onto general sale. I think it's going to be a real, you know, there's not going to be many to choose from when it gets to that day.
Sell out within, how long do we reckon it'll sell out? Do you reckon it'll be sold out by the end of next week? I reckon it will be.
So you're saying, so people who are members have got till the end of this week?
We've had about a week. It might have been slightly over a week. I can't quite remember. But we've had about a week to get it, and then after that, it's a free for all basically. And
it's general sale from Monday, is it? Or
I think it's Monday or Tuesday. Yeah. The ticket. So the cheapest ticket. I got tickets in the port because that's where my tickets were. So it's not run by the club. The ticketing for these semi-finals and finals. The ticketing is run by the A-Leagues. So the cheapest ticket was about $45, $46 with all the add-ons in the port. And then obviously they go up from there.
Reasonable?
Yeah. It's still reasonable. Still reasonable for a big game of football.
Oh.
So I'm happy as, you know.
It's huge. I don't think they're going to... I think what will... I reckon they'll almost be... I think they'll be sold out by the end of the week, even probably by Wednesday or Thursday. But I think maybe what they'll do is if they sell out that quick, which I think they will, they'll start to look at adding extra seats. You know, they'll look at those corners or those areas. I think I remember somebody mentioning for the Warriors or something, they can do something in those corners. They can put some more seats.
Yeah.
And I think they'll be able to gauge that on the website. You know, well, actually, they don't run it, but I think they'll get information back that'll say, hey, there's quite a few people here that are on a waiting list or want to get in. And I think that's what they'll do.
I love some of the random comments that come in on YouTube. Shenanigans that says, if you know anyone who works at ANZ, they can get access to tickets as well.
Wow.
So is that like free tickets for us, or just if we forget to buy our tickets? I wonder.
I'm just hoping that there's got to be people in this chat that are going to pop up and say, "Hey, I work at this. I know this person. Hey, lads, do you fancy jumping into the VIP bit that Betcher have got? Or hey, do you want to sit next to? Actually, I mean, my mind's going at a million miles an hour here. I wonder if Bill will come over for it.
I love it when your mind goes a million miles an hour, Matthew.
Oh, I don't.
I feel like good things are coming.
Oh, it can go either way.
The big guy, I reckon Bill Foley's going to come for the grand final. I'd be surprised if he didn't. I'm actually I'm going to put a pitch in just to talk to Bill in the last few weeks with the club, see if we can get Bill on the show.
Someone say, yeah, he'd definitely come for the final, but I'd just be very surprised if he didn't come for that semi-final. I really do. I mean,
nah, he won't.
I think we will.
He won't come for the.
You reckon?
He'll come for the. Well, I mean, look, I might be wrong. What do I know about Bill Foley's diary? But
well, yeah, exactly. Does anybody have access to Bill's PA? What's he up to?
If he's available, though, we're going to get him on the pod. That's for sure.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, so the build up to the semi-final kind of starts for us. Obviously, we're going to be speaking about the elimination finals this weekend. Robbie Feldman will be joining us on the show in a wee while because we'll need Robbie to discuss that. He is our knowledge over there in Australia. It was a kind of weird one. I'm like when I'm a Spurs fan, being an Auckland FC fan. I only care about Auckland FC in this league, and I you know what I mean. I'm not watching the other games like I should be. I don't know whether that's kind of,
I have been. I know. I definitely agree with you. I think you mentioned on a few podcasts a few ago where you find it tough to watch a game which you haven't got an interest in. It's difficult to get behind. But I have I watched Western Sydney Wanderers play. I think it was MacArthur. I think that was a game that just went recently. So I have actually found myself. I just think. Actually, I'll tell you another game I watched as well. I watched Wellington play Perth last weekend. And I tell you what, I mean, we all know this is an Auckland football podcast, and I don't want to make it anything to do with Wellington, but they are so far off the pace. I mean, we battered Perth. I mean, I know we only won, was it 1 or 2-0, but we had so many chances. Wellington were just so far off. I mean, Perth could have won that by a load.
What is up with the Phoenix? And the boss chief, he still didn't get fired. He's on for another year. And I was thinking about Wellington Phoenix fans earlier when I was putting the show together, and I was thinking there's nothing worse than being a football fan at the end, those final few weeks of a season, and your team have nothing to play for. You may as well not even exist. And welcome to Wellington. Welcome to being a Wellington Phoenix fan at the moment, I guess.
But don't they have to go to that? They have to go to that awful situation where they've got to go to Darwin and play who to find out who's the best of the worst. Remember that we were talking?
That's right. Is that happening? Does anyone know about this? They've got to go to Darwin for to avoid the wooden spoon. So do they? Yeah. Is it like cards? They just keep playing until they've got a loser. Like.
I tell you what. You're right. If anyone needed a bit of a G up to try and make sure that you go all the way to because we have that. A lot of podcasters call it they're on the beach. When a team is about to finish mid-table, they've got nothing to play for. The players are on the beach. But if anybody needed a bit of a G up to make sure that you didn't finish down the bottom, surely having to avoid a trip to Darwin to play the teams all the teams that are crap around you. To have to see who's the best of the worst.
Yeah. Horrible heat up there for playing football. I mean, lovely for a holiday and, checking out the crocodiles, Kakadu, but playing football to see who doesn't come bottom of the A-League probably wouldn't be top of people's list.
All the places to go. It's such a big trek from Wellington to Darwin. I mean, I went up to Darwin from Sydney or Brisbane, and that felt a bit of a trek. To go from Wellington to Darwin is just awful. I don't even know if there's a direct flight. You'd probably have to go. You'd probably have to get off a plane and get back on another one.
They don't run commuter planes between Wellington and Darwin. You get it through Melbourne or Sydney or somewhere, wouldn't you?
Boy, oh boy, awful. What a
But
shame.
yeah, so we got a big show coming up tonight. Matt and I are obviously just waffling on here at the top of the show, which is quite nice when you and I just get left on the show alone. We just tend to waffle a bit and with no real direction or urgency, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, we've done this a lot. We've done this for many, many years. Just sat down and waffled away, and
Waffle away.
as the night's gone on, and we've drank more and more, the louder and louder we've got. So it's just interesting that there could be quite a few people out there that's actually listening to us. I think we always thought that when we were out, people were listening to us, but I don't think they really were. So this is a change of pace. That there is actually people out there.
When we used to when we used to get on the Terps, that's right. They had no choice but to listen.
That's right. It's like, I just give in. I'm going to listen. I've got no idea what they're talking about. It doesn't make any sense, but it's drowning out absolutely everything in the room. I'm just going to go with it. Yeah.
That's right. Well, also tonight we've got. I did an interview earlier with Doug Courts, who is the head of recruitment at Auckland FC. And he's a really interesting guy. He was basically one of the first data analysts over in the A-League with Sydney FC, and he obviously worked with Stevie Corica over there and Graham Arnold, and they all went through like the Socceroos. Went up to the Socceroo. He was a data analyst for the Socceroos, and now this is his kind of first head of recruitment job. But really interesting chat because I got to the bottom of, we've talked about whether Auckland FC is going to have this academy like we know some of the A-League teams have. And well, he talks about it in the interview in a wee while. But basically the idea is not to have an academy and but just to keep this bunch of sort of young guys. They keep coming to camps and they keep coming to training sessions and they learn the philosophy. But there's no, he put it really well. He said, look, you might have 3 really good left backs at 14 years of age, but you don't know which one's going to be the best left back until they hit about 18. So you don't want to say you're in the academy and the other 2 are out. And so they've got like, a bunch of clubs in the northern region of the North Island who kind of feed in and send their best lads along. And yeah, so it's going like that. So we're listening to Doug Coors a little bit later on. So that's interesting. He has a 3-year plan for recruitment and talks to us a little bit about the recruitment philosophy when he came to the club, which is really interesting, and who set the tone for it. So that might be a surprise to some to find out who set the tone. First, I want to talk about the Auckland FC season awards. And I forgot that football clubs have these lovely they have a little gala dinner at the end, don't they? And you get a player of the year.
That's right.
Player of the year.
Yeah, it must have been a great do as well, considering the success. I always think of some of the teams that have had appalling seasons, and they always still go ahead with their season. I should know. Birmingham City continue to do an end of season awards, but it must have been one of the worst parties in town.
You've got to have the end of the You've got to have the end of season awards, but I know that a lot of football clubs, not a lot of football clubs, but you read it when they're having a terrible season, and the Christmas party's cancelled. They're at the bottom of the league, at Christmas, coming into the Christmas spell, and the gaffer cancels Christmas.
It's right. It just shows you how well you're performing. You can the amount of free meals you get, or the amount of setups that you have. But I mean, we were in an awful position where I think we had 2 end of year awards in a row. And a lone player won almost every single award. That's how bad it was. So everybody kind of was listening to this guy and explaining about how well he's had and what a great season and da-da-da-da-da. But everyone in the back of their mind just knew that he was off. It was like he's done his whatever he needs to do, and he's going back to the club that he came from. So, but yeah, it must have been a great night. I'm seeing. I think we're going to get onto that now, but I can see some of the people that won the awards. I think it pretty much
I mean, Guillermo Mai has picked up the big award, which is the 2 big awards, I guess. The MVP, Most Valuable Player. So they don't call it Player of the Season, it's MVP. I cannot disagree with Guillermo Mai being Player of the Season. Or have you got another candidate that potentially?
So that MVP? So yeah, we would call it Player of the Season.
I think
but
so.
is there also a Players Player of the Season? That's another award, isn't it?
No, that's another one. So MVP. Well,
Okay,
it's
okay.
most valuable players. It's slightly different to Player of the Season. It's kind of like, who would you not want to be without? I guess
That's right. If it was me, if I was a player, I would always look to. I'd be much happier to win the Players Player of the Season, because I think that speaks a lot about how your fellow players think about you as part of the team. So I think that's always the award that I think is worth winning. But I think Guillermo, I think that sounds about right. Yeah, I think he has. I mean, what's he scored? 12 goals this season, I think, altogether.
Is it that many in the A-League? Who knows? Anyone on the comments? I thought he was only on about 9 or 10, but that might have been a few weeks ago.
Robbie, is it 10 or was that 12?
Is that Robbie? Was Robbie in the car?
Who said we'd miss him?
Who said we'd miss him? Because Nader Moreno, he scored 8 goals. That goal against Western that we'll talk a little bit about in a minute. That was his 8th goal. Yeah. I
think mine makes sense. I mean, the one that always stands out to me, and that's why I asked the question, if there's a Players Player of the Season, De Vries had to walk away with something. And I think he's walked away with that, hasn't he?
He's got something. Well, so Guillermo got the MVP and the Golden Boot winner. You think it's 12 goals. We will stand corrected if it's not 12.
Anyone in the chat?
What I find, and I find this a little bit strange, that we have the top goal scorer before the semis and the final. It's kind of like it's a entirely different situation, because someone could come in and score 6 goals in those 3 games quite easily,
But is he? I think he's won. Yeah, I know. I see what you're saying. Yeah,
it's the regular season. It's the awards are done on the regular season.
Regular season.
And they do not include these playoffs and semis to come, which is
I think it would be pretty hard pressed for someone to even go over the top of him, would they? Because I think, like you said, Moreno's got 9.
Moreno's got 8.
If it's 8,
banging 6 goals.
Anyway, well,
I digress. We've got players player of the season was Alex Paulson. Players player of the season, Alex Paulson. Yeah. Players player.
Wow. I thought that was different. What did De Vries win then?
John Jamity says only 9 goals for I thought it was 9 goals. That's misinformation, Matthew. Yeah, I thought so. Moreno was only 1 off. So Moreno, if he gets more in the playoffs, he'll end up with more. Overall,
that's where
for the regular season.
That's where I get a poke from Robbie, and he'd say it's actually 12 goals, and everyone would just go, "Oh yeah, Matt's had a bit of a chance at that." But unfortunately, that comment has allowed to fester, and it's made me look a little bit way off there, hasn't it?
He's made you look a right mug.
He's made you look a right mug.
He's made you look a right mug.
I'm gonna blame all this on Robbie. The fact that he's just not here means you always blame the person that's not here. At work, if anything starts to go wrong.
It's Robbie's
just
fault.
Have a look around and who's not here? Oh yeah,
it's funny. So, sometimes he's waiting in the lobby, and I've got something obstructing my view of the bit where I can let him in.
He's probably been there for the last 10 minutes, shaking his head, just going.
Hold on.
Oh god,
he's not.
Yeah,
there.
That's good.
All right, you'll like this one.
So Paulson won Players Player of the Season.
Players Player of the Season. We've got a Members Player of the Season, Francis de Vries. There you go.
Yeah, see, I'm surprised. I thought Players Player would have gone to de Vries. I really do. I just think he's just tired. He kind of, he's always there, but he's always looking for the pass. He's always trying to. He just embodies what I would want to see if I was playing in defence. I'm surprised he didn't win Players Player of the season. I really am.
But Members Player of the Season. So I guess that's that's is that me?
That's you.
Member? Yeah. I'm terrible at these things. I actually now you come to mention, I do remember the email. Yeah. I would have gone for Guillermo.
Would you? For members?
He's my favourite player. I just love watching him, because I just think you always need that nuggety forwards, like kind of creating and nuggeting away. I tell you what, he could get another award, and that could come from us. I think I was looking at the other day to see which was our most popular viewed podcast on YouTube, and I think it was the interview with Guillermo. So he could almost get an award from us for being our most popular guest. I'd have to go back.
Nice
check
job
those.
report.
Judging on your stats so far, I might go back
still
and
not.
check that one.
Yeah. I would if I were you. I'd double check that. Yeah. Well, I'd hate to give Guillermo another award and then have to take it off him and give it to
Yeah.
somebody else. Yeah.
John reckons Moreno scored 9. I'm thoroughly confused because I've just watched the replay and it said that Moreno was on 8. So I feel like I'm living in some weird statistical nightmare where no one really knows what's wrong.
I'm just not going to get involved.
No, you be quiet. Talking to Nader Moreno, he scored a belter of a goal. Actually, I love the curling away. On the outside of the boot, smashed through it and it was spinning. Goalie's got no chance. He's won the goal of the season. Nader Moreno.
Yeah.
Do you remember his goal? He scored a lot of good goals. That guy.
I was going to say he has scored quite a few good goals, hasn't he? I mean, I go on. Who was it against? Have you got it?
I thought you were going to know, Matthew. I did have a look.
The thing is, for me, that was the one that I because I always feel that the goal of the season was Jake Brimmer's goal at the Source Stadium. Not only did he score a fantastic goal, I'm sure he scored it against the Central Coast Mariners in front of Mr. Tomato Ketchup and Mrs. Mustard.
He did. It was a chip or a.
Oh, it was like he kind of like carried it through. I think he kind of turned the defender.
Did he flick it, or was that against the
Phoenix? Flicked it, yeah. Like then it went across him, flicked it, bang. Oh,
here we go. Here we go. Shenanigans. Newcastle Jets. Yeah, he's right.
Oh, is that the Moreno goal?
Yeah, Moreno. Newcastle Jets.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, but I think
must have been away.
The fact still stands is that Brimmers was against was the Source Stadium.
Central Coast.
Yeah. We're getting our Newcastle Jets and our sources mixed up. We're struggling.
Hey, they should get people doing this podcast to know what they're talking about, Matthew.
That's right. With the stands in. Your regular podcast host will be back next week, folks. Don't worry.
No, it wasn't the game in the rain, John. I don't think it was the game in the rain, was it?
Was it the game in the rain?
Nah, I don't think so.
That was at home.
I actually thought the best goal of the season was me mate Guillermo again. And I had this beautiful view in the port, and he curled it, and he was right bang, he curled it in. I can't remember. These games are all moulding into one for me now. My life is all merging together.
Well, it's a great problem to have because we've beaten so many teams and we've scored so many fantastic goals. So
that's one way of looking at it, eh?
Is that I feel hopefully that's just going to carry me through. That's what I'm going to end my point on. It's just been a great season so far.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Western game, Western United. When we were given our predictions last week, I almost predicted an Auckland FC defeat. It was coming, but then I was like, I don't feel good about it personally, like predicting a defeat, but maybe I should have done because my hunch was right. It was a dead rubber, really. It was a dead rubber, wasn't it?
Yeah, it felt a bit like
for us.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, that's the problem, isn't it? There was nothing on the line for us, but there was everything on the line for them, wasn't it? So
it seemed obvious that they would have more to play for. It just seems obvious, that we would win over there.
They were pretty good from the start. They're a funny team, Western United. We were just talking just before we started. They really are the one team that Auckland have just not managed to get hold of. Yep, that's why I guess we're going to talk about it when we try and think about who we'd like to play and who not to play. I mean, whoever we play are going to be, they've obviously made the top 6, so there's going to be good teams in there. But yeah, I'd like to avoid Western United. I'd hope that someone could knock them guys out before we.
Well, we can't. Yeah, we can't play Western United in the semis. They're the only one of the 3 we can't play.
Perfect.
Yeah. It'll be Western Sydney Wanderers, Victory, or Adelaide. But so it would be a grand final. I think it's got Auckland FC, Western United grand final.
I think you're
written
right.
all over the season because it's a story, it's a narrative, and I think what I've said a few times in this podcast, there's no sport like football that throws up those stories. Western United were tipped to come, I think, near the bottom of this league. Auckland FC no one had a clue what they were going to do. Sydney FC were the favourites, and they're gone. They're toast.
Yeah, that's a huge. I'm fixed. But when I saw Adelaide, I really think Adelaide have got something about them. So that's why I would have said a little while ago that I'd be surprised if Adelaide didn't make the final six. But then to substitute them for Sydney FC is pretty shocking as well. Yeah, I thought Sydney FC would have enough to get in there. So I think it's been pretty. I mean, it's hard, again, it's hard for us to compare because we've never. This feels like our first full season, doesn't it? Really. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, with Sydney of what they've got and the resources they have to not make the final six is a pretty big fail.
Yeah, they got some good players. Costa and Sigurcic that scored those two beautiful curlers against us. Sydney FC. Anyway, they're gone. Forget about them. Yeah, Western United, like you say, it was kind of. It felt a bit like that first game. You know, we couldn't get in the game. They didn't let us play our normal game. Here we go, Robbie.
Oh, hello, Feldman. Just in time. Yes. Thank goodness. That is 25 minutes that we've had to drag that out. With right. Whatever you do not go and listen back to the last 25 minutes. There's incorrect stats flying around. I have to put my hand up for that. A big mea culpa for that for me. What else did we get wrong, Dale? It's hard to. I don't know. Where do we start?
Lots of stuff. We've talked about the Auckland FC Awards, and we're up to, Western United, the game itself. We were just basically just saying that, they're the one team that seemed to have a bit of a handle on Auckland FC this season. Would you agree, Robbie?
Yeah, I think I agree. And look, I'll apologise in advance. I've had to move up to the upstairs office, which has the worst Wi-Fi. So if I drop out, I apologise. Hopefully it's not in the middle of a good point because I have a lot of good points.
We need them.
Yeah, I think
on our arse.
Yeah, Western's probably got the best measure of Auckland thus far. I did some digging while I was waiting to come home, and of the rest of the so we can't play Western until the grand final, which I think is actually a good thing. But of the other teams that we'll potentially face, we haven't lost to any of them. The Warriors, Victory, or Adelaide. With Western, I don't know. They seem to match up really well against us, and I don't know why exactly that is. I can't put my finger on it. The other teams have their own strengths and weaknesses, but for whatever reason, Western just seem to be able to get the better of Auckland, even though, like, I had a look at the stats from the last game. It was a very sluggish start. You could tell they were hungover, but then we come into the game. They finished stronger, and they actually had statistically the better numbers. Like, there was more possession, more shots, more final third entries, but it was just. Yeah, that first half hour, I think it was pretty clear that the team had been celebrating, and I heard Guillaume and Mai say as much. Like, they had an extra day of partying and recovery, and then they actually started preparing for the week. So it showed. But I mean, I'm not the result. I wasn't too fussed about, to be honest.
No, it was a bit of a dead rubber. I can't quite remember the Western away game which we won, how we played, because if I look at the Western at home and then this one. They just seem to just press and not let us play our game and just expose us a little bit. There's something about their pace with which they play with Western United, which is a little bit different, a little. Yeah, I mean, it's the team that. I mean, I've called it before you come on. I can just see the story is written Auckland FC Western United final because no one would have picked that, right? I mean, there's 4 more teams in it, but.
Yeah, but you're right. I don't think many would have picked that to be the grand final. They're a really well set up team from goalkeeper all the way up to the front third. Johnny Eloise is a very shrewd coach as well. He's very underrated as a coach. I don't think he's appreciated as much in Australia that he should be. But you're right. Right across the park, they've got enough talented players. The spine's really strong. Tomoki Imai, Donachie at the back, Dylan Leonard, who's 17 or 18 years old, centre back. Matt Sutton's a good goalkeeper. Angus Thurgate in the middle, who scored against us on the weekend. He's one of the best players in the league this season. Up front, Noah Botic, one of the best young strikers going around Australia. Ibasuki, who's a very cagey veteran. That's just everything about them is really well balanced. Yeah, and they got the game style to really cause Auckland problems. But in saying that, Auckland's pretty well balanced themselves, and tactically, it's pretty even. It's just on the day, I think, with those two teams.
I mean, my worry would be the question I have to ask myself: if it is the grand final, that was the first game I ever went to go and see Auckland play live. was Auckland against Western United.
So don't watch it.
And we all know how that ended. So it might have to be me back. I think Auckland play their best when I'm sitting there watching them on the telly, if I'm going to be honest.
You've been to a few games since, though, Matthew.
Yeah, I feel like I've shaken.
You put this to bed.
Put the first to bed, yeah. But hey, if it is the final, I'll have a think. I'll have a good think.
So looking at the elimination round this weekend, guys, we've got Western Sydney Wanderers versus Melbourne Victory, and then we've got Western United against Adelaide. How do we call those two games? The who's in the better form, the Sydney Wanderers or Melbourne Victory? Who's most likely to come through that one?
Wanderers are easily the hottest team at the moment.
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry to jump in there, Matt. It's Wanderers unbeaten in 12 or 13 games. That's they're easily the form team at the moment. The fact that they're going to be at home as well. The active supporter end for the RBB is sold out, and that automatically means it's going to be a hot atmosphere at Combank, and Victory are going to be walking into that. That's a really intriguing game. Yeah. I'm hoping Adelaide gets through because I know we'll beat them.
Yeah. I like Adelaide. I quite like the way they play.
They're more of an open team. Yeah, it's
all over the shop.
With Adelaide.
There's going to be goals.
Super entertaining. Yeah, it's going to be goals. Yeah, that'd be a great.
Yeah,
game.
But I think the intriguing one with that matchup is the fact that they've said their coach is going. The team are pretty, I'd say, 90% supportive of the coach. So it's just going to be a big middle finger to the owners if they manage to get through again. That's the only kind of smoky for me. But yeah. In all honesty, I don't really care who gets through because it's going to be, at this point of the season, it's just bloody tough. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
no,
that's right.
All right, so this guy. Before you joined us, Robbie, Matt and I were just sort of talking about the end of season stuff. The awards are decided before we go into the playoffs. And we've got Guillermo Mai, who we think he scored 9 goals, right, to win the Golden Boot, and we believe Moreno's on 8, but someone said he might be on 9. Why do they have the awards before we do? Because we've got 3 more games, maybe. Why don't they count towards? Is it because I guess the players? Why is it?
I think it's purely just to do with the league season, because you just look at the league season, the rest is kind of an extra. So it might come into consideration. I don't know how clubs do it. Yeah. I don't know if it might come into consideration for next season, but. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me. You do it over the course of the 29, 30 weeks, however long the season is.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I thought was quite impressive was the team of the season to get 4, was it 5?
So I sent you something earlier in the week, and I thought the ALeague had named their team of the season, but it was Vince Regari, who's a Sydney Morning Herald reporter, and Tommy Orr, who's an ex-Socceroo, had a big career in the A-League.
So is it official?
No, because it was on the A-League channels, and I was like, is this the official team? And it's having done a little bit more research before the show. But both of those two guys, they have named Paulsen, Sakai, De Vries, Pinnaker, and Verstraete in their team of the season. So,
I mean, you'd be hard. I'd happily have an argument about any. The only one that someone could probably put a good argument is maybe Oh, I don't even know. No, I don't want to say it. I was going to say Verstraete, but I think he's been pretty good. The problem with Verstraete was that he was very good, that he kind of dipped a little bit, and then he came back quite good. It's probably more. I'd have to listen to who the person would be to replace him. It'd have to be one hell of a player to see who would get in front of him. I think the three in the back and the goalkeeper. Yeah, Sakai maybe. Maybe there's a right back out there that may have had a season out there, but De Vries, Pineker, and Paulson. You're not going to move those three, I don't think. Yeah,
Agree. I mean, I couldn't disagree with either of their picks. I watched that episode today, and they were pretty spot on. I mean, the only other one that Vince mentioned was Nathaniel Atkinson from Melbourne City, but he's been moved around quite. He's been very consistent. He's played all season, but just not solely at right back. So he would have been the only, I think, other contender. But hard to argue, to be honest. And moving further forward on their teams, I can't really say like a Guillermo Mai, as good as he was. I think they were just better performers for other clubs this season.
Costa was in there, and is it Segacic, the other Sydney FC? Yeah. Great player. Is he going to get a move overseas or something? I was reading some stuff that he's looking good.
Yeah. I would expect.
Yeah, that's the talk. He's expected to not be in the A-League next season for sure.
Yeah, he's a player. Yeah, he's good. I think with those guys, the Auckland players are just always available. The fitness of this team this year, whoever's, I mean, we're going to talk to the stats. There might be a bit of an overlap. I'm looking forward to this interview with this stats guy. There might be a bit of an overlap in terms of, I'm not sure if he does talk about fitness or when he is assessing players, he sees, their durability. That might come into it, but they've just always been available. De Vries is just, Sakai, De Vries. I think Pineker was out for a little bit, wasn't he? I think Paulson being a goalkeeper, but Verstraete seems to always be, and they got him back from that injury pretty quick. So yeah, the durability of those players is fantastic. So good.
Yeah, agree. It's the durability and the fact that there's depth. We talked to Dan Hall about it. Even though he missed 3 months of the season, someone else was able to step in so seamlessly. Same with Verstraete, we were able to cover that. Sakai, when he was out for a couple of weeks, we've been very lucky this season and how strong the depth of the team has been. That we've
never felt like we've really missed players. There was that one game, of course, we always talk about the Western at home where the injury came for Dan, and Tommy came in and we looked a bit out of sorts. But apart from that game, like you say, we didn't miss players. Verstraete was in and out. Yeah, great stuff. I feel like that was your prompt, Matthew, for me to play the video.
There's a segue there.
Segue in.
I'm really looking forward to this. I think people that listen to this, there's a lot of people that look at players and there's certain players that they think, why are they not playing this week or not playing that week? There's a lot of data that we're just not privy to as fans. People have redlined in the last game, or this guy he's struggling with something. So I think this is going to be fascinating. This is going to give people a real insight. Yeah.
Well, let's have a listen to Doug Cause, head of recruitment, came in at the beginning of the season, came to us from Sydney FC, where he was a data analyst over there, and he was at the Socceroos as well. So let's get a bit of an insight into player recruitment. Doug Cause joins us on Nice Drop of Port now. Doug is the head of player recruitment at Auckland FC. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks, Dale. Appreciate the invitation. When Ian got in touch and asked about coming on, I thought he was offering me a drop of port. So he's promised that he'll buy me a drink, but more than happy to come on and talk about the season and how things are going.
It's funny, a port's actually a drink I only drink once a year. I don't know why I came up with the name, but it seemed to resonate. Anyway, well, congrats on being part of such a great first season to start off with. I guess much of the credit has to go to the recruitment team. Do you take some of that credit there, Doug?
I think, you probably wouldn't be speaking to me now if we weren't doing well. So, we'll take the plaudits and the recognition. But, ultimately, it's down to the players. They've got to do the business on the field. And in my role, fortunately, when they do well, it makes me look good. So I'm happy with that. I'll take that. But it's certainly a lot of different areas of the club coming together. Of course, recruitment's a big part. You got to get the right players, but they need to be on the pitch. They need to be fit. They need to be set up right, and the players themselves have to get the job done. So I think the success, honestly, for the club this year, both on and off the field, I think everyone can see it's every area of the club has fired all at the same time, which is what you need to do to win trophies. So it's just been a pleasure to be a part of it.
What was the remit when you first came in? Were you given a sort of very direct bunch of instructions to get certain types of players, or in your role, do you say, actually, I think these are the sorts of players we need? How does it all work for those of us that don't work at a football club?
Yeah, it comes from the top. So there was a clear vision set by Bill. I think he publicly sort of stated what he wanted to see and said that to us privately as well. So we knew the team had to have a strong Kiwi core, needed to be an opportunity for New Zealand players in the local game to progress, and also for players overseas to come back and have the opportunity to play in front of friends and family, some of them for the first time playing in New Zealand. So we knew it had to have a strong core. That's the goal for us as a club as we go through the years. How do we add more and more Kiwis? And then the second goal was we have to compete to win championships. So I think it's been pretty clear the players that we brought in, all of the Australian players, have had great experiences, have helped drive standards, and the foreign players are the quality that sort of adds on in the end. So we knew through the process we might have had, an Australian player who was the equivalent of a New Zealand player available. So it could have been the Australian version of a Logan Rogerson, or the Australian version of a Max Mata, Australian version of a Tommy Smith. And maybe they were, in some cases, individually, they could have been better value financially. They could have been slightly better players technically. They might have been at a better age. But if you assemble a squad full of Australian players to play in Auckland, you're not going to engage in the community, and you're not going to have the buy-in from the playing group. So we knew that we wanted a strong group of Kiwi players. We're probably fortunate that at the time there's a lot of talent. So actually the decisions weren't too hard in terms of finding those players. And we knew if we got the right group together and kind of followed the strategy that we built based on Bill's vision, that we would be competing for the trophies that obviously we are.
Yeah, well, a lot of credit anyway goes to you and the team, but because you make it sound easy, but you have created that blend, like you say, of the Kiwis, the people like Tommy Smith, who's sort of in the swan song of his career, and then even the likes of Guillermo Mai, who like none of us had ever heard of, but he works his socks off every game. He looks like he's always played for Auckland FC. So you guys must be pretty pleased with yourself though of how it went.
Yeah, of course. And I think you're always looking with your foreign recruitment. If you get that right, you're going to be at the top end of the table. So we put a lot of effort into that, and a lot of hours between, myself, Terry McFlynn, Steve Corica, all of us kind of digging into the detail on players. You don't expect to get them all right, to be honest. I think if you get sort of, you have 5 foreign spots. If you get 4 out of 5, you're doing really well. If you get 3 out of 5, you're probably pretty happy. And I think we're fortunate that the 5 we brought in have done very well and gelled together really well. So we've probably struck gold there in a way. And yeah, of course, probably the first few weeks of the season, you're a bit nervous for different reasons. Like you're wanting to see those players do well and show their qualities, which they did. We obviously had a great start, and that just builds confidence. And there's probably been great foreign players in the league before who maybe haven't had that start, and if the confidence isn't there, things can go wrong. But everything clicked for us from round one, and we've been flying ever since.
Absolutely. And now, so most of your great work that we see, of course, was done before the season started, right? Getting all these guys in. Give us a little bit of a flavour of what a head of player recruitment does all the way through the season, because there's only been a few faces come in and come out. Marley came in halfway through, but generally it's the same bunch of guys. What do you do on a day-to-day basis? What does your life look like, Doug?
Yeah, we're always kind of planning ahead. Succession planning is a big part of what we do. So at the moment, we're building our team in the presentations and the PowerPoints, things that we work on. We're building the team for year 3 is what we're sort of looking at as a focus point right now. So starting to identify players that will come in then. A majority of our squad's under contract for next year, so there'll be a few positions that may change over the off season. So obviously we're looking at those as a priority. But I think for us, it's starting to plan ahead and look at who are the players that are going to come through to sustain the success, because there's been successful A-League teams in the past, and when you have success, what happens is it's great opportunities for players to move on and further their career. So you know that's going to happen at some point. So then we need to make sure if a player goes, we have somebody of the same standard, if not even better, to come in and continue the success. So for us, it's really kind of forward planning. I'd say a lot of the work that Terry and I do, it's maybe not as much day to day, looking week to week, but sort of starting to plan, what will the team be in round one in sort of year three is a big conversation point we have during the week.
Are you able to give us any sort of names of players on the radar for next season?
Look, I think the thing for us is it follows the strategy. So we'll find out. There's still a few players we need to see who are either coming off contract or loans are ending that we need to see at the end of the year where they'll sit. And off the back of that, we'll look at Kiwis first and see if there's some players overseas who want to come back. I'm out every week watching the National League, so also looking if there's another, Francis de Vries or Cam Howison popping around who we can bring in as well. So looking at those players, and then if there's not an option there, we'll look at Australian players. If there's not an option there, we'll look at foreign players. So that's kind of the process we go through. We want to make sure that the success we've had is built on the balance of the squad and getting things right, and we need to maintain that in the future as well.
Okay. Yeah, so we've sort of talked a little bit about the first team and, the grown-up players, but of course, a big part of your role is bringing the youth into the club. Just briefly explain to us a little bit about what the development centre training camp was all about in April, just gone.
Yeah, that was really exciting for us because it gave us the opportunity to see players who might be in that year 3 group or even year 4 group as we sort of start to plan for the future. So we have a reserve team that just started recently playing in the National League. So they're players who are between the ages of sort of 16 to 20. So we're looking at them immediately kind of pushing to get into that A-League squad. The development centre then sits under that. So we're then looking at those players who are maybe, 2 or 3 years away from coming into our program full time. We've chosen not to have an academy model, a sort of traditional academy model. And there's a few reasons for that. But I think the key thing for us with this program is we want to make sure players understand that even though we don't have an academy model, there is a pathway, there is opportunities. We're seeing these players now every month, sometimes more frequently than that. So it's about our pathway to identify players over a long period of time so we can see those that when they are ready to join our club, whether it be in, 6 months, 18 months, 3 years, we know who they are and we've seen them over a long period.
Yeah, and so for those that don't know, the camp, I'm reading off the website, there were 26 young players, 14 to 16 years of age, from 12 partner clubs, right across the Auckland region and the North Island. What was the standard of those young lads? And can you spot a baller straight away, or is it kind of over a period of time at that age?
It's both. Like first, there's some standout players that pretty quickly. They'll probably become professionals. They'll become all whites. And then there are players that you're not sure of that over time you'll see more and more. So for us, it was a great opportunity. As you said, there was 26 players. There was 4 or 5 other players who would have come in but were not available. So that's 30 players for that sort of age group. If we have an academy model, you have one team per age. So you end up in a situation where you maybe have a squad of 18 players. In our model, we're able to have essentially twice the amount. And a good example is we had 3 left backs during that camp. So there's 3 players there. They're all probably of the same quality right now. If we have an academy model where we have to pick one of those players, the other 2 don't get access to our programs. And so you're trying to make a bet on a player at 14 years old. Do we think they're going to make it in 4 or 5 years? And no one in world football knows that. There's no secret way of picking a top player. So for us, it's about going, okay, these players are talented. They're good players for their age, and then we can bring them in, give them sort of support, a structure, and then watch them over a long period of time. And then whichever one out of those 3 left backs is the best, when we get to a position when they're ready to join our team, they can come in, and we've seen them over a long period of time. Sometimes when you have that kind of model, you hamstrung yourself to that one player, and you kind of try to keep them in. You keep them in. Oh, they've been here since they were 14, 15. We need to keep progressing them. And sometimes you might miss the player that's not there. And I think that's really the story of our A-League team, I think. You've got players like Franny de Vries, you've got players like, Logan Rogerson. I think you've got guys who've done so well in the A-League, for whatever reason, have been overlooked, maybe because they've not gone through those kind of traditional pathways. So for us, it's kind of broadening the base and having a look at all the talent that's out there, to see over a longer period of time who are those ones that are kind of floating under the radar so they don't go missed.
So your tactic is not to have the academy and not to have to make these choices at a young age. But how do you say you have these 26, 30 lads come, and you're like, look, we know these 5, we want these 5. How do you sew them up? Because presumably there are other scouts floating around for A-League teams and even overseas teams.
Yeah, so we have a training group now that's starting. So on a Monday night, we get together with some of these players, and we've done it with a sort of a smaller group. And then next term, some of those players will drop out. Some other players will come in week to week. There might be different players that come in. So we're not kind of stuck in a registration system where you have a squad of 18 and you're locked into that. We can float players in and out, give them opportunities to stay connected to the club, and just explain to them our pathway. And so they understand that they're a part of it. So for all those players who are in that training camp, they know that they're being monitored and watched by us. They're having opportunities, some week by week, some month by month, to come in and be seen. And then when the time is right, we'll bring them into our program full time. So we don't have to make that decision at the age of 14 years old, where they can stay with their clubs, with their communities. They can have their social development. They can develop as young men. And we're going to have the same program on the women's side when that launches as well. But you're allowing young people to develop socially, psychologically, and at the right time, join our club. We'll probably miss out on some players. Like, that's the nature of it, for sure. I'm sure there'll be other clubs that will want to pick up this group. But for us, it's sort of trying to pick the right model for Auckland. In different cities, you probably do different approaches, but in Auckland, it makes a lot of sense for us to do this model.
Okay. It says that the Black Knight, sorry, I'll start that again. So the education workshop, it focused not only on like playing football, but the Black Knight football philosophy, strength conditioning, mental preparation, which sort of got me thinking, when you're head of recruitment or a scout, it's not just about whether you're a great footballer these days. There are other things that come in, like, do you have the mental capacity, resilience, all those types of things. Like, what's kind of more important? Is it raw talent, or is it like, they can become a pro because of other reasons?
Yeah, I think when we get to the final stage, when we're sort of making a decision about offering a contract to a player, you're considering all those factors. So it's what they're doing technically, what do they do tactically, their physical output, and then mentally, what do they offer and what do we know of them? So at that stage, you're kind of making those decisions. We can't make those decisions on 14-year-olds because they're developing their brains, they're developing their personalities. So who they are at 14 is not who they're going to be at 17 or who they're going to be at 21. So for us, we're looking at them as footballers, and then we're looking to help give them tools to develop in those other areas. So, okay, technically you're at this level, but how can we help you understand the game better tactically at a young age? What are the tools that can actually help you build resilience, build your kind of mental preparation and understanding how to prepare to be a professional, and then physically starting to give them the tools as well. So we're already seeing here that definitely a trend in football in New Zealand. I would say physically players are not being developed the same as what we see in other parts of the world. So for us, we've hired some staff here that their sole role is to develop these players as well. So they're going out to clubs, they're running these training camps, they're running specific sessions on, again, giving kind of tools to these players to understand how to move better and become better athletes as well. So our focus is, to try and give sort of tools to all these players to help them develop. And then later on down the track, we'll see who the best ones are, and then we can bring them into the club. we don't have to make that decision at such a young age.
Yeah. I mean, around the world, sort of when young kids get into sport, one of the big criticisms is, of course, that they don't, they forget about their schoolwork and they kind of like put all their eggs in one basket. Is there sort of education around that as well? I'm a father, so I'm asking these things, for those reasons.
No, it's a good point. I mean, we've gone out to some of the schools. We actually have one of the schools coming here on Tuesday to just catch up where some of the players in this kind of training camp are at that school. And that's just to understand how the balance in those players' life, where are they doing things, how are they managing things. We have a few school-age players who are in our reserve team, so they train with us in our program, sort of, I say full time, but as in they're just solely in our program. So they train 4 days a week in the mornings, and then they go to school. And so we have relationships with the school about, okay, if they're going to miss maybe the first half hour of school, what does that look like, and how do they maintain that balance? The reality is there's such a small percentage of these players go on to become professionals. So yes, we're trying to find the ones that are going to become pros, but we also want to develop them as young people, in this case, young men. And we want to make sure that, they're not putting all their eggs in one basket in football. So yeah, that balance is very important. And I think it becomes a part of that kind of social dynamic as well. A lot of talented footballers I've worked with, the most important people for their football are often their parents. So it's mum or dad or both. Sometimes it's a sibling, brother or sister playing in the backyard. And then most often the third one is like their best friend. Sometimes we think it's like their under 14s coach or their under 12s coach, or, their teammates when they're at 17 in, this club. But for most of them, the most important people when they reflect on it's their mates at school. So we're really keen to maintain that social dynamic for these young players, so they can continue to have those relationships, but also have a pathway, to professional football if they're at that standard.
Great. And now, so Doug, you came to us from Sydney FC and the Socceroos. You were a data analyst. You were one of the first ones in the ALeague, I believe. What is more important? Is it the data? Is data king these days still? Because you would have sat there studying heat maps and statistics. It feels like it's more important than ever in football now.
Yeah, it's a big part, but it's a tool like many other tools that we have. So for us, data is never the answer to a question. It actually provokes a question. So if the data says, Logan's had a good game on the weekend, it doesn't really explain the why, but we can dig in with the coaches and the video and look at, okay, he's had a good game for these specific reasons. The same way we would do in recruiting a player. So if we're looking at a player's strengths or weaknesses, we can look at the data, and then we can use that to kind of provoke questions and say, okay, Guillermo Mai is very good in these areas. Why isn't he as good in these sort of areas? And he's a good example, because if you just look at the data, the sort of year before joining us, he was sort of being played out of position in different roles. So the data for him actually wasn't that strong. Whereas if we went back 2 seasons ago when he was playing in his preferred position, it was very high. So there's a lot of context to take in. Data can become noise. It can become confusing. When it's done really well, it's insightful for coaches, and it gets them thinking. So we want to use it as a tool that makes them kind of think deeper, or allows them to kind of get really specific questions. That's where it works for us, and it's one of many things we use in the process.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a sort of different role now, but just humour me. So if you're a data analyst and you've got a coach who wants to pick his best 11, he sort of knows what his best 11 is. Are you sort of banging on the head coach's door, but saying, yeah, but the data's telling me something quite different here. These 2 guys need to be in, or these 2 guys need to be out. Is it that sort of conversation?
I wouldn't say so. I'm very fortunate. I've worked with really good coaches by the nature of, my time at Sydney with Graham Arnold and Steve was the assistant there. My time in the national teams with the different coaches, and now working with Steve. So I'm fortunate that when you work with good coaches, they're often making the right decisions anyway. So you're not having these sort of arguments. For us, it's about providing, information, but if it's someone like Steve, he's going to get information from a lot of different areas, right? So the data could say one thing, but there's, physical performance data that could say something. It could be information that's coming from the assistant coaches, what they're seeing in training. It could be information coming from Terry about what's going on with the player, with their agent or their contract renewal, or what's going on with their family. So there's a lot of reasons that can come in, and that's kind of the art of coaching, is they've got to kind of take all of this different information in and make a decision. A lot of the times that might be different to what the data says, and that doesn't mean that it's the wrong decision, but there could be other contexts which is more important. So I've never been in a person who's kind of bashed down the door and said, this spreadsheet says something different to what you're thinking. But again, I've been fortunate. I've worked with great coaches, so maybe in other environments you're having those battles. You're
there to enrich the decisions. Absolutely. We talked to sort of Steve and Terry a little bit about the data actually being shared. With obviously the Black Knights group, we've got Bournemouth and Hibernian and a French team that escapes my memory. But that's right. Is it kind of like a daily, weekly sharing of these stats, and are we reaping the benefit from that arrangement?
Yeah, definitely. And it might sound like an exaggeration, but I literally had a call last night with Garvin, who's the head of recruitment at Hibs, and then some of the data team at Bournemouth as well. So we're sort of in the still kind of startup phase as a club group. So we're figuring out how to share things. It's a lot easier for us because we're brand new. So we can just take what Bournemouth already has. For the other clubs, they already have their own processes. So they're trying to learn how can they adapt things to match what Bournemouth do. But it's very helpful for us because the amount of information we get is far greater than any other A-League club. And I know that having been involved at other clubs. So for us, it's a huge benefit. The tools that we had access to for especially our foreign recruitment, the information we had, like we talk about, what Guillermo does, physically on the pitch, what Felipe Gallegos does. There's information we had on those players that no other club in the A-League would have access to. So it's a huge benefit for us. The other part is just in general, like the knowledge sharing and the access to scouts. So yes, data is a big part, but there's also scouts on the ground. So Bournemouth have about 35 different scouts across the world. So when you talk about, how do you sign someone like Nader Moreno? What do you know about Colombia? I don't know a lot about Colombian football, but I can get on the phone and get a contact with someone there and immediately have a conversation around, the standard there. How does that compare to the A-League? What's the players' qualities like? And then that scout on the ground can actually reach out and find information out on the players. So they'll speak to people who have worked with the player or players who have played with them. So we had a really good understanding of the character of the players we brought in. And I think you can see on the pitch, how well they gel together. And off the pitch, it's been the most harmonious, football club I've worked at in terms of all the players every day having lunch together, smiling, enjoying each other's company. So we were able to kind of find the right characters as well to come in, and sometimes you get one bad character and they can poison a dressing room. And we're very lucky that we've got a really great group of people who want to achieve success and all have a clear goal. And it's a big reason, why we're winning games.
Great. And so is that how it's actually happening? Bournemouth have obviously got much more resources than Hibernian and, of course, Auckland FC. And they might be scouting a league somewhere in South America and they say, look, this player's not decent enough for Bournemouth, but like, what about Auckland? And you guys literally having that instant sort of relationship over players.
Yeah, so there's two parts. Like one is the raw data on players. So there's a few different metrics and different data sets we have access to where we can analyze that. And then there's the actual scouts that go out and watch games. And the way it works is that they have a rating system for all the players they watch. So if they're rating a top player, that's not going to be relevant for Auckland, but they might still rate a player, slightly lower that could be relevant for us. So we have access to those reports. We're talking about different ways as well. Like Alex Poulsen's been a good example that he's a player that they saw with talent, got taken to Bournemouth and now he's here with us, and we're looking forward to seeing what's next for AP. But like there's a conversation now about, okay, well, what if they find a super talented, 18-year-old Brazilian who's maybe not ready to play in the Premier League yet, but does he come to us for a year as a bit of like a testing ground? So there's opportunities in that way. There's been other players who early on, we actually almost signed a player who had played for Bournemouth, who was sort of towards the end of their career and for different reasons was being looked at. So yeah, there's different scenarios that will probably come up in the future where we'll see more players associated with the group, I think, come to Auckland.
There's a lot of talk around marquee signings, and of course there's one matter over in, over at Western Sydney, and we obviously didn't go down that route to quite that level. But who's the dream marquee signing? Is it Chris Wood, and is it something that's ever going to happen?
Someone like Chris would be a perfect marquee signing. For us, it perfectly matches the strategy as well in terms of having local players and Kiwi players. So it's possible, like anything is possible in football. He's obviously, doing exceptionally well at the moment, which is great for him. And he's going to, maximize his career earnings as he should for as long as he can. And then if there's a time where he wants to come and play in the ALeague, I'm sure we can work something out. So for us, I think it has to be the right scenario, both in terms of what they can contribute on the pitch and financially, what will work. But sometimes the players who have played in the ALeague sometimes earn a lot less money than what sometimes people think, and they choose to come here for lifestyle and for different reasons. So, there's nothing to say that we can't have a huge name player here in the future. It's just if the right conditions are there, and it might be a situation where, the club's doing so well and people want to play in front of a sold, Go Media Stadium in front of the Port, and that could mean that we get a bigger name in the future who's willing to come here. So we'll see what happens. It's one of the joys of the ALeague that we're fortunate to be in a beautiful part of the world, and people do want to come and play here.
All right, there you go. Video watchers, you can see I've been playing with CapCut a little bit there, a little bit of editing at the end. What an interview. What an interview, eh? Like, so much info.
Fantastic.
Brilliant. Again, mate, well done.
So good. There's so much good information. I actually, I was actually guilty of, there's so much good stuff that he was saying. I was actually looking like, I actually went to go to my mouse to rewind it, to hear it again. So I'm really looking forward to when we end this to go and listen back, because there's so much good stuff.
Lucky you don't have the end stream button like I have this end.
So you could
don't want one of those again. So what I found really interesting, I mean, a lot of interesting stuff in there. 35 scouts at Bournemouth.
Yeah.
That we have pretty much at our disposal, which no other A-League club has. And when he describes the granular, that's where Neider Moreno comes from. That's where Guillermo Maia comes from, because we're getting that information from a Premier League team. It's incredible, really.
Oh, it's the perfect scenario for this club to be in. I think the only other one I could think off the top of my head with the A-League is Melbourne City, because they're part of the City Group. So that kind of reach, but to have that kind of access, I mean, this club is in such a great position moving forward, and just listening to Doug talk about the academy stuff as well and the future planning. Oh, man, I'm pretty excited. Like, it doesn't matter what happens this year. Like, this club is here for the long term, and that's the one thing I was majorly worried about. Because teams have come and gone in the A-League, but the foundations are so strong here. So I'm pretty confident this is going to be the start of a beautiful journey for us.
Yeah. Well, it feels like we're all on this beautiful journey. The player recruitment, as we've talked about over and over again, they've got it spot on. And every time we talk to people from the club, they always say the same thing. They're looking for those personalities. And I think Doug described it really well, that one kind of bad personality in a dressing room can bring the whole thing down. That's the dark side of it. But like, we've seemed to have got it so right. He says, the players, they enjoy each other's company. They hang out, the most harmonious football club he's ever been at. It's it's like a
Yeah.
fairy tale, isn't it? You
It is.
you always hear about trouble in dressing rooms, with teams, but not here. It's incredible.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. And that was one of my questions. I wanted to know where the line came to a player that could do what you want him to do, but there's feedback coming back because they're doing character checks from what I can tell. They've identified a player that's going to fit the system, but they really want to get an idea of exactly his background, and they're chatting with people that know him and stuff like that. So I've always wondered, where does that line, yes, he's coming across as maybe his character's not quite there, but because he's just got so much talent and the data is leaping off the page, do we just take do we take a punt with that player, or do we just say, well, it's too much of a risk, we don't want to upset the dressing room? Yeah.
Well, I think we saw that, and this is not to cast aspersions, but Joey Chamness, when he was signed, all that very talented winger, proven performer in the A-League. Some might disagree with that, but we didn't see or hear boo from him all season. Then all of a sudden he was gone, and Marley Francois came in. So, and look, that that's not a character attack on Joey. It just maybe didn't work, didn't fit into what Steve was trying to build, what Doug and the club were trying to build, and that'll happen. But I just kind of wondered if that was the case.
Yeah. Good chance.
Yeah. What do we make of the talk around the academy, or the lack of academy? Sort of Doug really laid out why Auckland FC have gone the other way. Well, Robbie, how does this compare with how the Aussie A-League clubs go? I mean, most of them have academies, or some of them have academies?
Pretty much all have an academy. I think I'm just recalling the Adelaide chat that we had months ago that basically all teams have an NPL team, so an under 23 team that plays in the domestic top flight or lower grades, grades below that. But yeah, I found that very interesting as well, and you can't argue with this point. Bring someone into the academy, you're basically taking a punt on someone at 14. You're rolling the dice. At least this way, you kind of keep options open for longer. Fair enough. I'm not involved with setting up clubs. That makes sense to me. But then also having an academy does help as well. It's cases where teams are struck by injury. You can go to an academy player to bring in, put on the bench, or even they'll come into a starting 11 and play. But
they've got the reserve. They've
so
got the reserves, though.
We haven't had to do that. This fits.
You got the reserves. We've got the reserves for that, though, and they're like, so they're 16 to 20, but that development training camp that these young lads come from the sort of 12 corners of the North Island, and they can. I just love. It's a really good point. How do you make that decision at 14 to 16 that the player's going to be a player? And this, I guess, maybe Auckland, and he said it's different for different areas and regions, and maybe it's Auckland feel like we've got an open season on our region. No one's going to muscle in because there's no other A-League club, in the top of the North Island. So we've got everyone that's decent from Mount Ruapehu and up, basically, and below there we'll just go and maybe pinch a few. But it seems like we're confident that we don't need an academy because we can, he says he's got players coming, there's kids, they're training 4 mornings a week and they're getting that kind of, they go into that professional environment, get a taste of it, come on a camp, go back to their clubs, let them develop. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. My only push. That was the point that came up to me. But straight away, I thought, is there a worry that they go off somewhere else and they get picked up by another club? But I think Auckland being such a wide catchment area allows you to have the model that they've gone with. The only pushback I had was that I think a lot of people quite like academies because a lot of football teams try and have an identity of the way they like to play, and getting the guys. A lot of Premiership teams and Championship teams, what they're doing is they've got the main team training on this pitch, and then they've got the under 21s next to it, the under 18s next to them, then the under 16s, the under 14s, even down to something like the under 12s to the under 10s. So they're in the system basically. They know if you're going to be a Tottenham Hotspur player, this is how we want you to start. This is how we play. This is how the main guys play. And also, they can see the progression. It's like if you're training there as an under 14-year-old, you can look over and go, that, seeing's believing. I can see the main team training. I can see Maddison and, all the other Tottenham players training over there. That's where I want to get to. And I'm being taught the Tottenham way. And that's how I'm going to get myself into the main team. I think that's what Man City have done. I think that's what Man U do. Yeah. So that would be my only pushback, is that they might not be getting the quality training that they would maybe get from an Auckland academy when they go back to their own club. That would be my only pushback, yeah.
Good stuff. All right. Moving on. So the finals. I'm interested in some statistics and some trivia. How many Premiership winners go on to the grand final statistically? So what is this, our 20th season? So we've had 19 seasons. So how many go on to the grand final? And then finally, the second part to that question is, how many Premier winners go on to win the grand final? And so I've asked Robbie in that interview to go and find this out, and Matt and I don't know. I reckon.
So
what
just
am I
to
going
be, so to be clear, so there's 20 possibilities, isn't there?
There's been 19 seasons.
Okay.
This is the 20th, right?
So there could be. So there's a chance where there's been 19 winners of the Premiership. Obviously, 19 could have made the final, and 19 could have won the whole thing. That's
correct,
where
Matthew.
That's okay. Okay,
that's
right.
where we're at. Yeah. It's like Matt's arrived late to a maths lesson.
Yeah, I think I still haven't messaged Robbie about that previous question about the points and what we need to make sure that we've won.
I want you to ask me that question.
I still wrap my brain
question.
over that one every single time. I'm still trying to. I've even watched that podcast back about 4 or 5 times, and I still can't quite figure out that. But we'll get to that one day. The here and now, anyway.
Get to that. The here and now. All right. So how many premiers have gone on to reach the grand final out of 19? I reckon. You'd think so. I reckon 14 of them have reached the grand final.
Okay.
How many do you reckon, Matt? Out of 19?
12.
12. Drum roll, Robbie.
The answer: 16.
16.
Wow.
So I was closer. Yeah, I thought it would be a good percentage.
Okay, well that changes my
The league winners. So 16,
Yeah.
16 out of 19. So we've
Okay,
only hold on, maths. We've only had 3 that haven't made it. Okay, so the odds are forever in our favour with that one. And how many Premier winners have gone on to win the grand final? It's going to be less. I'm going to go for 9.
Ooh, I was going to say 8.
Robbie?
11.
11.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. So it's pretty, it's
More
way
than
better than a
50%.
50-50. Yeah.
Yeah, better than a 50-50. If you won the league, then you've got a more than 50-50 chance. Statistically, historically. But football matches, as we know, aren't played in the past. They're played on the day.
Love that.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's a famous Brian Clough, wasn't it? We had the best team on paper. It's just a shame you don't play football on a piece of paper.
That's right.
There you go.
And
Yeah,
the other, this is
That's
a total segue, and I'm doing this for Matt. The other trivia question that Matt and I were talking about before we came on is there's a team that has just set a world record for winning the league by the most amount of points, and that is Birmingham City have won League One in the UK.
Give it Robbie though. See if he reckons.
How many points? How many points did Birmingham City get this season?
Oh, I know they cracked 100. That was very recent, so I'm going to say 105 total.
Oh, that's what you said, Dale. I think.
Well, this is where
that
I
was
started.
your first guess.
I was like, I remember them cracking 100. It must be like 104, and he's like
More.
111.
Yeah.
Wow.
111. They got 111 points in one season.
Well, I
They
mean,
play
you
a lot of
play
games.
1,000 games.
Yeah. It's a lot of points.
Yeah, we do play a lot of games. They
It's a lot of
think
points,
it's a world record because the League One record was 105, and then I think the EFL record was 108, something like that. So they've broken it by, or something like that. They've also Birmingham have managed more wins in a season than anybody in English football history. No one has won more games.
You're playing in the third flight of the.
Yeah, that has to be.
So, I mean,
that certainly has to be an asterisk probably next to it, or a caveat. Yeah. We are playing pub teams.
While we're talking about our other football teams, Spurs, of course, are in the semi-final of the Europa League tomorrow, looking good to go to a final against Manchester United. So I'm in a really unusual position. I've got two teams, Auckland FC and Spurs, and both of them are still in action playing for things on May 8th. That's incredible.
What a crazy season. The season that Man U have had, but you're both going to be in a final. What a crazy... you've both been absolutely
rubbish,
horrific. Terrible.
We've lost like 18 on the bounce or something. But
you both could be playing for a European Cup. What? What are we doing here?
Champions League next year.
Champions League, I know. But
and it gets you in the Champions League.
Yeah, but unfortunately, Spurs have got Maddison and Bergvall out now, but that's a different story.
Right.
So,
jeez.
All right, you've got Ange.
We got Big Ange. In Ange we trust. Yeah, so it's a big old, just back to Auckland FC, big old lead in time now to the semi-final. Nice job report. We are going to be live on semi-final match day 1, the away leg. We're going to be live from Auckland at an unconfirmed venue so far. But Matt and I will be there, and unless Robbie can convince his missus to let him go on a holiday to Auckland, I assume it'll just be Matt and I.
Who knows? We'll wait and see. For all those people listening on, Robbie's face.
It's like a week before my baby's due. That's not happening.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
Yeah, no, that might be a tough call. Yeah, it might be a
tough call.
Yeah.
Are you working the elimination weekends, Robbie? You at the Western Sydney game or working on that one?
Actually, no. I'm going in for dental surgery tomorrow morning, so I'm going to be doing nothing on and just watching. I'm out for the whole week. I'm having my wisdom teeth out.
Good that you timed it for a Friday, though. Good you timed it for Friday, Robbie. Make sure you make the potty on a Thursday. Commitment.
I do what I can for this show.
That's commitment.
Just a consummate professional.
That's commitment. And just before we go, met Ali Williams in the cafe on Tuesday. Yep. I'm in there. It was the AFC cafe on College Hill, and I was talking to Ian, the comms guy. But Ali Williams did bowl in, and of course I said to him, "You got to come on the podcast," and he said he hadn't heard of it, but he's keen as. So yeah, I know. They always do. They and a lot of them they go, "Oh, I'm so busy with all my podcasts at the moment," That's what they all say. I said, "But you've not been on this one, mate." Anyway, he seemed keen. He seemed keen as so.
He'll come on. He seems
that'd be fun. That would be fun.
And Bill, I want Bill on before the end of the season. We'll see if Bill will do us a turn. Wouldn't that be fun?
Oh yeah,
talk to the man himself, Bill Farley.
Yeah,
that'd be amazing.
It would be amazing. All right, so Auckland FC have the weekend off. But yeah, we're I'm going to watch those eliminations. I think and see how the other teams get on.
Western Sydney, I think they'll prove to be the team to beat. I think they'll come out of those looking the most impressive.
Yeah. Western Sydney,
agree.
Yeah.
They look a decent outfit. Yeah.
And we'll look forward to our grand final with Western United in a few weeks, I guess.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
So. I don't want Western United.
All right, guys. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, Matt,
go
thanks
Adelaide.
As always. Yeah, go Adelaide.
Go Adelaide.
Oh, you want to tip Western out? No. Let's have the big final. Western United, Auckland. I reckon.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Oh dear.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us anyway. You got here in the end, Rob. Matt and I did okay for a while.
Yes, I made it. Thank you.
You made it. And if you have listened or watched, please do hit the subscribe button. That helps us very, very much indeed. More subscribers we have, the better. That was Nice Job Report. Up the port. We will see you back on the pod soon. See you later.
Up the port.